you all. This time I try to be prepared and have Emily come on beforehand, but I don't know if that worked. So we are here early, and the picture is kind of weird. We're still doing the tech is not our friend kind of a thing. So I'm trying to out the earbuds, and my ears tend to lose earbuds. So that might happen. And I'm here in Arizona. I'm in Ganado. It's a Sage Memorial Hospital, which is part of the Navajo Nation, or it's right on the Navajo Nation reservation. And my husband is working here right now. So while I'm waiting for Emily to come on, I'm going to show you just a little bit where I'm at. And the sun might be a problem. I don't know. We find out. But behind me, you see the house, and I'm going to do a quick turnaround. This is kind of what's a hospital, and you might not see much. I don't know, with the sun coming in. So it's basically a lot of just prefabbed homes where people which are working at the hospital live. You see a bunch of Chinese elm trees which were planted here when this place was a mission. When the mission moved away from here in 1980, that's when the hospital was leasing the area, and then built more of the temporary housing and so forth. So I don't see Emily yet, but you see this beautiful blue sky behind me. It was supposed to rain today, but it didn't. So while I'm waiting for Emily, I'm going to show you a couple of things. So in August, late July and August is monsoon season here, and you have a bunch of rain. And I'm going to, okay, so I'm still, dealing with all that tech stuff. And let's see what's up here. Okay, Emily, I already invited you to come in. Are you able to join? Because I had put it before, said you could be coming in. So Emily, are you coming? Or do I have to send you another invite? Okay, well, let me see if I can. Okay, why don't you, okay, so you send me an, okay. I just accepted your request. And you're being added. Here you are. Excellent.
Hey.
Hey, so I set it up beforehand where, it asked if I wanted to invite people to join, and I had put you on, but maybe you have to join in before we get started. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Looks like,
So,
hey there.
can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I can
Okay.
put my head.
Yeah, because I put on the headset and the microphone, and I had bought one and I used it for the podcast, and it made terrible, terrible noises. And then I realized that my husband had stolen my headset, and I had his, and his must be a knockoff or something, because
Oh yeah.
because I know I had recorded before and it was okay. And that time, every time it had just this crazy background noise and stuff. So I
Right.
wanted to try it out and see how we're doing with this one. So I'm just
Yeah, this
walking
works
around.
great.
Good. You are in a tiny home. You are tiny home.
Yes, yes, but you know, it's actually a perfect day because I thought we could do a quick comparison of tiny houses versus camper because we are packing up our camper to head out this morning for a trip.
Cool. Where are you going to?
We're just gonna go to a campsite close to Steamboat, and visit some friends. So
Cool. Cool. Yeah,
yeah.
let's do that. So right now, what is the first thing you want to tell people about?
Well, so when we've lived in our tiny house for about 2 years, and then we were actually going to sell it and downsize again to an even smaller tiny house. So while we were doing that, we were living in our camper. So our camper is actually, now that we're back in our tiny house, our camper is actually a foot longer than our tiny house.
Oh, really?
But yeah, so we wanted to downsize our camper now, but the tricky part with campers is if they're older, you're dealing with mold. If
Right.
they're newer, you're dealing with chemicals and formaldehyde and glues. So our camper was the last camper we could find by a company called Evergreen. And they went out of business because they were using less toxic chemicals and they couldn't keep up with the market.
Yeah.
So now
More
we are stuck with
expensive.
this huge camper. But you know, it's kind of fun though because we do get to do informational videos like this where you can see behind me there's so much storage in a tiny house and it's so purposeful. We have place for everything. When we lived in our camper with all the same amount of stuff, and the camper's a foot longer, but you don't have the lofts. So you're really, you know, it feels a lot more claustrophobic. So you can see, you know, the big ceilings, all the windows. So I'll take you guys over to the camper.
Cool.
Um, but keep in mind that the slide out is not out, because that does make a difference. I mean, it makes it wider. It doesn't make it any more storage by any means.
So
So
the slide out is when you park, then you have like a veranda, or what is it all about?
yeah, the slide out, once you're parked, you just slide it out and you've got like an extra five, five-ish feet. So the living space just opens up, which is really
Oh, okay.
nice. And they've discussed doing that in tiny houses, but the problem with that is it really makes it easy for water to get in, and it really, the structural integrity is no longer there. I mean, obviously RVs are fine because they're just metal boxes, but tiny houses, you really need that more support. So this is the camper. So it's a foot longer, but obviously it doesn't have the lofts.
Right, right.
So this company no longer exists, unfortunately, and they have their certified green thing here. But yeah, so you can see it's really dark, and that's the part that we don't like. And you know, the windows most windows don't really open. Everything's made with, you know, a little bit cheaper materials. When we lived in our camper for about 5, 6 months, we had 7 things break.
Wow.
So yeah, and you know,
Well, it's
there's
not
really
meant
no
to be
storage.
used all the time, right? I mean, it's meant to
Exactly.
travel and be done with it. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what, you know, and I have friends that live in an RV full time and they make it work, but they admit they have to, you know, things break.
Right,
So yeah,
right.
this is the only storage is one closet for clothes on this side, one on that side, a little bit for bedding on top. There is storage under here, but how practical is that? Your bed is on top of here.
Right.
So I've put like children's books that why it's too old for, I put in there kind
Hey,
of for storage.
hold on. Amy and Dalina watching. Hi, guys. If you have any questions for Emily about tiny homes or campers, type them in, okay?
So the other reason campers aren't as useful with storage, and why they are only recreation vehicles, is because you can see the storage is under the couch here.
Right.
So under that couch is storage. Well, again, you're sitting on your couch. How practical is it to have to go lift everything up and, you know,
Right.
and also it's in the slide out. So you can't put heavy things on here. You don't want all the weight of your house in your slide out.
Hi, Becky.
And then And then here we have more storage. Well, it's under the kitchen. It's under these benches here for the table. Well, again, it's not practical. So all of our son's homeschool curriculum was in there, and that was extremely impractical because it was hard to get to. You had to, it's hard to find it once it's in there. These are the
Right.
lofts that have turned into storage. So because we don't want to have to dig. We don't want to have to dig under things. But actually, it kind of works out great. This is kind of like, since we don't have a shed right now in our next to our tiny house because we don't have a permanent location, kind of works out great. This is just extra school curriculum, games, and of course our drip stuff.
Right.
And it comes with freezer and fridge, microwave that of course we don't use. If you, for those who are watching, if you use a microwave, I would highly recommend doing some research. It makes a lot of our food just not as nutrition.
Nutrition.
Yeah, not
I like
nutrient dense.
I like new words.
Right?
It's always good to get new words going.
So yeah, so you can see there's really not a lot of storage, which is why campers are really meant for recreation. I fully support the full-time campers. I think campers can just be made much more environmentally friendly for the people, and just designed a little bit better if they are,
So
maybe.
I want to
Go
throw
ahead.
some in. So Meredith just started watching Grateful, and she had a camper experience where her camper got mold, and that had
Yep.
like serious health consequences for
Yep.
her and her son. Yeah, Becky, new words are awesome. So Meredith, if you want to type some in, and tell us about it and how you handled it, then that would be awesome. So for those of you who came in later, Emily is a tiny house dweller, and we're seeing the tiny home right now. And they also have a camper because, they were living in it for a while. And that's their place to go on vacation with. And their camper was the last one they could find, which was actually made by a green company. And hey, Wyatt. So you have a nice fire ring where you're parked right now. And those are not available anymore, which is really too bad, So is that camper
When that's
sitting
really
on a truck, or did it come with a vehicle?
our camper.
Yeah.
So our camper, we just pull behind our truck. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was just going to show you, it's kind of, so right now in the tiny house movement, there's the schoolies. So this is a school bus that's been converted into a house. So the tiny house movement right now is kind of deciding what it is and what the standards are. So
Right.
this person is going to renovate. This used to be an old band. A band used to travel in this. So they bumped it up, and so they turned it into like a traveling house. So it actually is very RV like. So he's gutting it and redoing it and making it brand new. So
Right.
there's schoolies, vans, tiny houses like mine, and then converted. Yeah, so that's kind of like the tiny house movement as of now. It'll probably have to shift more to a little bit stricter, just like my tiny house, because it's going to be built to building standards versus RV standards. But the movement's just so new, we're just kind of all figuring it out, because even though my house is on wheels, it is built like a house. So there'll probably be kind of 3 different avenues to the tiny house world.
Right.
Because ours, we can take these wheels off and put them on a foundation, and then it looks and feels like a house.
Right. So actually, in our latest podcast, Emily was interviewing a builder, and they talk a little bit about also different regulations and why it is actually of benefit to have some regulations. So that might be some, if that is of interest to you at all. And, and actually, I mean, we live in a fairly small house, but I feel as we are getting older and, living in California, everything is so expensive, said it might be a retirement option to actually move to a tiny home and sell the house we have, so it's definitely of interest to follow that. And you never know where you find yourself in life.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's so great for retirement, and because it's like 50 to $100,000 for a tiny house, depending on the size and materials. And that really, a lot of times you get into these, not even before assisted living, they have apartments and things. And a
Right.
lot of times that's more than your mortgage was.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. They're, very, very expensive.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Becky made a really good comment that bus conversions are not new. No, they're
Yeah.
not at all. But what the bus conversion community is doing is trying to set standards as we are, because
Mm-hmm.
we want them to have we want bus conversions to have a place to park. Right now, you still have to be, for the most part, off grid, and many RV parks do not allow bus conversion. So we are working very closely with the bus conversion community to figure out how we can help them standardize so that they too can have places to park.
Yeah, and again, that's we have been talking in the podcast about how a lot of times where I'm going to show some of the beautiful sky. I'm in Arizona, and it's the sky I'm totally in love with. But you know how parking is a lot of times a big problem. So now you have
Yes,
your house, but where do you put it? you know,
right.
and I think that's why a lot of people choose or have chosen to be on wheels to get around like zoning laws when you can only have one dwelling, so that you can park your RV. So, but that's all stuff. And you're very actively involved in creating regulations or helping with that, right, Emily?
Yep. I just got hired by the American Tiny House Association to be kind of the Denver area rep. So I will be spending pretty much all my time now trying to fully legalize tiny homes, and eventually down the road we will help with the buses and vans and yurts, and it's basically just alternative housing. And that's where down the road, if we could even have communities where tiny houses on wheels are allowed, bus conversions and vans, and
Right.
so that would be the goal.
So the regulations right now are different from municipality to municipal, whatever that word is, right? So like,
Yeah,
but your hope
it's
is
city by
if you
city.
right, but your hope is if you can create a good model, that then other cities might be more willing to adopt it, right? Because it's working
Yeah, it's
here
like
in this big
anything.
city.
Well, and
Yeah,
it's like anything, like residential builders have to build to a specific code. Well, it shouldn't really be any different for bus conversion, van conversions, and tiny houses. But the tricky part is just getting the industry together to make those decisions, because we want to make sure, it's the best possible standard that we can have, because it just takes one tiny house, one bus conversion burning down, whether it's by a DIYer or a professional builder, to really push the movement back several years. So that's really our goal. And we is here in the Colorado area, we are really big into DIYers. So we just need to give them the tools to make sure that they are doing it safely. And same with builders. There's plenty of builders that should be contracting out for electrical and plumbing and things that they're not qualified to do. So
right.
it's really just kind of reining everybody in, educating them. Because if there's municipalities, I mean, you can't blame them. It's the same as a regular house. When our home, the 3-season porch didn't have a permit pulled. There was no, so I was nervous, and it was the pillars holding it up were starting to shift and fall because they didn't put the cement foundation down far enough. So, it's the same as a regular house. We want these built safely and to some sort of code so that we ensure safety.
So I mean, there are a lot of people which are very much against regulations because
Hmm.
once you have the government involved, then it becomes a bureaucracy and all of that. But
Right.
like your point is that it might be more disadvantage to the movement at all. So that it might just become illegal, period, if there are a lot of
Yep.
places which might create problems. It's such a
Right.
big thing
And these,
because
right.
yeah, I'm all for freedom, and I cringe at any kind of regulations because a lot of times they become unreasonable,
Right.
but I also can see the points that if there are no regulation and people don't know what they're doing, that it can create
Exactly.
problems. So yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
really comes
it's
into fires. And I mean, we've had these tiny houses go down the road and there's siding falling off. There's, the wheel will just come off the axle because it's too much weight. I mean, you don't, yes, I'm also, hey, do what you want to do, live your life. But, if you're going to be sharing the road with me, I don't want your tiny house all of a sudden falling out down in front of me and killing my family. So it goes both ways.
yeah,
It's like,
absolutely. I can definitely see that point, especially when you're moving and stuff like that. It's a really, it's a really sticky thing for me because there is such a huge part of me which just wants to go like I want all the bureaucracy to disappear and just allow
right.
people to do what they want to do. And there's plenty of people which will do the right thing no matter what, if somebody is looking over their shoulder or not. But like then you're saying too, a lot of times it's just a lack of knowledge too. And
Yes. Yep.
I definitely know that, having getting really deeply into permaculture, I did a lot of things in the beginning which I would do differently now, having more
Hmm.
experience, and which might not, turn out that well. So yeah. Yeah, I know it's one of those sticky points, but it's good to have somebody in there helping with it, who has also the freedom idea in mind and doesn't want to overregulate things.
Well, and that's the beauty of this movement is because it's a very grassroots effort. The people making the regulations are, they're employing myself and they're employing builders, dwellers, industry leaders, insurance companies, all, they're employing a lot of people to come together and have a conversation about it. So at least it's going to take longer that way, but at least it'll be more fair and more, it's not even like right now the Appendix Q in the IRC code that specifically talks about tiny homes. I mean, there's like, it's like one page and it's super short. And there's just little things like, okay, the stairs need to be at least big enough so people aren't like falling off of them. And, you need to have enough space to go to the bathroom. I mean, it's not like super intense yet.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, obviously it could get there for sure.
I
But at
I
least for
think
now, it's really simple.
yeah, but I think you were just touching on a point that uh yeah, Becky is saying that San Diego is looking into at least
Hmm.
allowing one because we have such a housing shortage. And I'm
Yep.
in Lemon Grove, which is part of, well, right now I'm in Arizona, but usually I'm in
Yeah.
Lemon Grove, which has still a lot of big properties where that would be very
Right.
possible. And they have an ordinance that you can't put like a granite flat in, which I think is really crazy. But I wanted to get back to, especially like you talk a lot about for tiny homes to be a real alternative for home ownership. And
Yes.
and so there is a point of the insurance and financing coming in because even if they're way cheaper than a regular home, there are a lot of us, myself included, which don't have $100,000 laying around to do a tiny house
Exactly.
build. So that means we
Right.
have to finance it. And ideally, like I used to have a store and I had a lot of African customers. And the way it worked in at least in the Eritrean and Somali community is that if somebody wanted to buy a house, everybody in the community put in $500 and then they would pay the community back little by little by little, right? So if we could do something
Right.
like that, that would be ideal, right?
Hmm.
But most of Western people are not of that mindset,
Right.
so it's like, oh, you're my friend, I'm not going to loan you any money because friends don't do money, right? So that's
Right.
more as the idea here. And so if you want to get a bank to give you a loan, then you basically have to have an insurance because banks will
Hmm.
not loan you. even on a car, you need to have full insurance, right? And insurances don't want to insure something they're not sure of, so that it doesn't go up into flames. So, I mean,
Exactly.
there's a lot, it makes a lot of sense, all of that. But, you know,
There are a couple, they're starting to get insured. They're starting to get financed slowly but surely. Most people have to do a personal loan, and of course, the percentages are outrageous. And as far as like, again, that's where the standardization and having a tiny house code comes into play, because the insurers and the finances are like, well, is this an RV? Is this a park model? Is
right.
this, what is this? And it's like, well, it's kind of both. So
Yeah,
that's the tricky part is, they're sort of in between a regular house and an RV, but they're still higher quality than a park model because they're made with the materials of a home, and they're on much more sturdy trailers, because they have to be, because they're heavier. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that moves forward.
right. So
So
Becky,
Becky's
yeah,
asking, yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
So ADA standards, as far as I know, that will be incorporated, as far as I know, but it really just depends on, what the quickest and most efficient and most powerful avenue to standardize these. I know that tiny homes will be meeting, they have to meet the National Fire Protection and Safety codes. So they basically have to meet all the codes that are already available for homes, but we just have to make them tiny house friendly. So for example, with, like the toilet, the toilet, you need, I think it's like 3 feet total. And I think they got it down to like 2 feet. Um, so it's just kind of, some of these things, like you said, they're kind of overregulated. Like, why do you care if my toilet has this amount of room, right? As long as I can safely go to the bathroom.
Right, right, right. And I wonder,
But
how is
yeah.
it, like a lot of time houses need to be on a sewer system or
Mm.
the other one, not, what is it? So tanks.
Yeah, composting toilet versus, yeah,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Is that going to be allowed? Because I mean, that's like huge for a tiny house if you have that possibility. That
Yep. So
you,
I'm working with I'm working with somebody with the Colorado State University in Fort Collins. So have been emailing back and forth. We're going to set up a meeting, and I'm going to meet with the sustainability department that they have. And they are talking about potentially seeing if the university wants to study some sort of composting thing like if we build when we build our tiny house community, they will be studying that human manure, whether it's like an actual facility, because ideally it would be something where we're creating energy out of human waste, just like
right.
Toyota does. So that would be the long term goal. Obviously, that costs a lot of money, but if we have the backing, if we say, hey, any university, here's our property, here's a spot, put your big facility on it free of charge, and just study it,
Well,
right? So we have the benefit of.
they're gas digesters, so which don't take that much to build. I mean, I'm not a do it yourself person, DIY person, so I look at the plans and I'm like, oh, that's way over my pay grade, but I know people, a lot of like the self-sufficiency people have done that, and where it is
Mhm.
safe and they can run the cooking stove from it and stuff like that, so that would be really cool. I wanted to address
Yeah.
something else before we get back into that Becky had been talking about, and she talked about the homeless problem in San Diego.
Mhm.
And I was wondering if you would address just for a second the Colorado homeless village.
Hmm. Yep, the beloved tiny house homeless village here in Colorado has been very successful. They have to move every 6 months to keep up with the zoning code. I think it's the way, because again, all of this tiny house stuff and homeless housing comes down to, well, sure, it's okay if it's not permanent because then we don't have to commit to anything. So it's the idea, well, you can do it, but just keep moving so you're not in one location, which is still a step in the right direction. I know that our goal is to really get the zoning on that. Another way they got around zoning is there's no water or sink or anything. So the tiny homes in the beloved homeless community is strictly bed and desk. The
Oh,
shared
okay.
area, right. So the shared area is where you have the showers, the bathrooms, the sinks, the cooking. So that's all shared. So it's more cost efficient. It's easier to move because it's almost it's kind of like when you have events or with construction sites. It's just cheaper, and it's something they're used to. So with this whole movement, including the homeless, is trying to get the municipalities to just again, people are afraid of change. So we're doing it as similar as to they're used to as possible, and then slowly asking for a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more until it just sort of evolves into actual permanent communities. I know the beloved tiny house community, they're building another one that's strictly for single moms or battered women, I believe. Um, so you can check out their website for more information. But again, that one has to move every 6 months. But
Well,
I
a
know they're
lot of
working on it.
I think a lot of it is that everybody says, "Oh, we want this, but not in our neighborhood," right? I mean,
Right,
that's
right.
part of the big reason. Said, yeah, you know, that's always
When
a
and
big problem.
people are afraid of the mental illness and the drugs and everything, but they're just perpetuating the cycle of poverty. So having your own home is one step in the direction of you know healing your mind, body, and soul. Because if you don't have a place you can call home, whether it's big or small, you really can't heal. How can you heal when you're sleeping on a blanket on a floor with 300 other people? It's just not realistic. I mean, even when we have guests staying in our house, or well, when we had a house or in our tiny house, or you act differently because it's not your own space.
Right. And I think there have been a lot of studies actually made said having
Hmm.
shelter was like the first step to ensuring, like if you have all kinds of services, but you don't have the shelter in place, it's just not as effective. Yeah,
Right. And
definitely.
I think I will be emailing them here shortly to try to work with them to make it a little bit more holistic because, yes, having a roof over your head is the first step. But after feeling homeless myself, moving from Minnesota to Colorado, I felt what homelessness felt like on a very small scale. I still had a roof over my head, but it was hard for me to get, a new license. And without an address, you are limited,
Oh
library cards,
yeah.
I mean, mailbox, I mean, all the simple things that we all take for granted add up. It's a lot of stress. And if I can, with a master's degree, I can barely figure it out, and even some of it I haven't figured out yet, how are we expecting the average American with a sixth grade, understanding of the world to go through this process? Like, why is it so
Right.
hard? Why is there not a sheet that says, here's what you do, and here's places where you can get internet and get a job? And I mean, there needs to be so much more than just a place to live. We need to have things in place where people are held their hand, or why don't we just make it easier for them?
Right, right. And that's really, is a big part. So for one, there's such a big stigma on there, having lost your home. And it can happen to any of us so fast. I mean, I'm sure there are some people which have a big, cushion to fall on, but most of us, if the next paycheck doesn't come, we can maybe make another month or two. And after that, forget
Yep.
it, so it's definitely a subject not to push away.
Hmm.
It's a real reality. And it seems like the tiny house movement could be such a big impact, like in San Diego we have over 5,000 homeless, and that's counted, right? So there are countless people
Oh,
which are
there's
couch
more. Yeah.
surfing or living in a tent in somebody's backyard, or just escaped the count somehow because they don't want to be counted, so there's a lot of that going on.
When actually,
um
it's interesting because moving from Minnesota to here, in Minnesota, there is homelessness, but once moving out west, I was really shell shocked with how much more expensive things are. Just little things like insurance, like car insurance, and just the little things add up super quick, and gas,
right.
and the jobs that my husband he has the same amount of experience, and he got a job that paid way less. And it was interesting to just shift over and be like, oh, it really is harder out west to
Yeah.
get the same lifestyle as you do
Well,
in the Midwest.
and in Minnesota, you have pretty good health care from the state and all kinds of stuff, no?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which,
For my, yeah.
the rest of us don't have that. I had a discussion yesterday with my husband, said, uh, he had it was around healthcare and health insurance, and somebody on Facebook said, "Well, I paid all my life for health insurance, and other people should too." And he's like, "Hey, dude, like I pay just for me over $600 a month for health insurance, which has a deductible of like almost $7,000, and then a copayment after that, right? So."
Mm,
It's really only there for something big happening, right? Which I had cancer in the past, so I'm careful, because
yeah.
then I had insurance and it still cost me an arm and a leg, but without insurance, it would be, basically impossible. And people which make here in California now it's $10 an hour is minimum wage. If you make $10 an hour, you cannot afford to pay for health insurance. It's
No,
just
especially with the
no way.
housing costs on top of, yeah.
Well, yeah, you can't even afford to pay for a house. So it's like, yeah, it's crazy. And I'm really hoping that somehow with collective minds, we are going to find like some kinds of solutions for that, because there are just so many people suffering. It's like unbelievable, not just.
Well, and that's why I'm
Go ahead.
Well, that's why I'm so driven for this community aspect of the tiny house world, because we, by pooling our resources, I mean, you still can have your job, live your life, do what you want to do. But there's something to be said about just having that network of support and having, knowing that you can fall back on people. And, things like, just even having your own garden. Like, how many people who work full time have time for a garden? But if we are
Right.
working together as a community and sharing all the responsibilities and chores and things, you are going to have time for that garden, and you are going to have the time for the yoga and the meditation. And, people in the community, everyone has something to offer. When I did the survey for what you would want to, what you could offer a community, we had anything from, daycare to math, to gardening, to construction, to maintenance, to, I mean, it was just a whole plethora of professionals that could have something to offer to the community. So it'll be really fun to see how that kind of plays out. And there are plenty of people who just want to go out and live by yourself on the mountainside, and that's fine too. Do what
Right.
works for you. But for those of us who want a little bit less responsibility, a little more shared responsibility, so that we can do what we love, I think small communities are a place to start. And I had a vision for, 100 tiny homes, but honestly, that might be a little overwhelming because we're so far removed from the idea of tribe that it might, I think we're shifting more to like a very small community to just try it out, test it out, get the kinks out. And then obviously this has been going on since, forever, right? I mean, there's been little
Right.
communes and communities all over the country. So there's plenty of resources out there. If you haven't yet, I can't remember if I said in a podcast, but Jill Canto is a great person to talk to. She came up with a free website called searchtinyhousevillages.com. And
Uh-huh.
she's been, kind of researching the egalitarian communities forever. And there's anything from the community is completely self-sustainable, like all jobs, everything, health insurance, everything is self-sustainable within the community, to the other extreme where, it's just people being next to each other, creating community. So you can search all over the country where you can find that community.
Yeah, we have a couple of podcasts too with Diane, and I always say her last name wrong, so I have to look it up. But she has written a couple of books about intentional communities and
Mm-hmm.
how they work and how they fail. Because
Mm-hmm.
she's saying that only 10% of intentional communities survive, because a lot
Yep.
of people go in with the idea, oh, it's nice, we want to hang out together, but without a business plan and without like,
Yep.
how do you govern yourself? What do you do? It fails. So we kind of jumped a little bit because we were just starting to talk about tiny homes, but then what you're really passionate about is to create tiny home communities using the vehicle of tiny homes to to be able to live in community. And personally, for me, that is very attractive because, like you said, when you have visitors over, you act differently. So I don't particularly want to share my house with someone.
Yep.
But I don't mind to share, a common space with other people, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, So,
Yeah.
and by someone, I'm not talking about my children or my husband, they can come. But, and, I love visitors and everything, but it is different if you have to adjust to, let's say, 10 personalities living in a house. It's much closer.
Right.
Like if
Right.
you live in a community where you have a space to retreat to, you can let all your crankiness hang out when you're by yourself, and then be your cheery self when you're with other people,
Yeah. Right? Hi, what's wrong?
So I think Meredith and Becky are watching. Do you guys have any other questions? Because Emily is about to head out on a vacation.
Here.
And so let's see. It says read more and then it doesn't give me more. Okay. Yeah, tribe is a great word. Boy, this comment just doesn't want to expand for me.
So it says tribe is a great word to use in developing these communities. It is a concept deep within us all, but modern society has taught it out of daily life. Working, living, playing together brings life healing, growth to everyone. Yes, Becky, that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I do agree with you, Mariana, that you do still need that time alone. You still need that time to be with yourself and heal. So having your own small private space is also, sometimes you just need to get away. Sometimes your kids are acting up, or, you just need a space for yourself. So I do like the aspect of both.
Yeah, I hear you. Is Friday at 1 better for you or Friday at 10 better for you? In the future?
Probably 10, because then we're still in the tiny house instead of out and exploring like we normally are.
Okay, yeah. So our goal is to come live on a weekly basis and talk about just whatever comes to our mind, and hopefully have you guys be there and participate with questions, or we can invite you on, and Wyatt has to come on,
here,
Wyatt. Your face, Wyatt. Hi.
He's so excited to go camping.
I know, so we let you go. But anyway, so we are going to make it 10 o'clock Mountain Time. That would be 9 o'clock Pacific Time. And I think it's time for us to go. Because Wyatt decided it's time. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much.
Have a great
day. Bye. Have a great vacation.
You too.
Bye.